Hello class and welcome to today's lesson on 4-6. So today's lesson is talking about congruence in right triangles. Excuse me. Today's goal is to prove triangles are congruent using the Hyp-Leg theorem. Our essential question is, what is the Hyp-Leg theorem and how do I use it to prove triangles are congruent? So again, like always, if you need to pause the video, feel free to do that and then catch right back up. So to start, hypotenuse of a triangle, making sure we understand what that means. When we're dealing with a right triangle, our hypotenuse is always what is across from our right angle. That is called our hypotenuse. So it's our longest side there. And then these other two are called our legs. Right? The right angle is always across from or points to our hypotenuse. So now hypotenuse leg, and feel free to pause this if you need to because I'm going to go fairly quickly. Hypotenuse leg is that you have the hypotenuse and a leg that are congruent as well as a right angle. Right? So we have two right triangles that have, two right triangles. Triangles must have congruent hypotenuses and they must have one pair of congruent legs. So again, if you want to write that theorem down, please pause it as I'm going to move forward. So looking at these two, it says, for what values of x and y are the two triangles congruent by hypotenuse leg? Well, if we look at these, right, our hypotenuse is here, our leg is here, so these would have to be congruent. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 4x plus 1 and set that equal to 13. We find 4x to equal 12, x is equal to 3. So we find x is equal to 3. Well, now we want to solve for down here, so we set these equal. But I'm now going to substitute that 3 in for wherever there's an x. So 2 times 3 plus y is equal to 8 times 3 minus 2y. So now I have 6 plus y is equal to 24 minus 2y. I add my 2y over here. I subtract my 6. So we get 3y is equal to, if we take 24 minus 6, we get 18. So y is equal to 6. Y is equal to 6. So we just plug those in. We have to figure out for those to be equal, and we find our y to be 6 and our x was 3. So now we have a couple of quick proofs to go through. So we start with this one, our given information. I'm just going to put quotes here real quick. Right, this information is given to us. I want to mark that on our drawing. So right, it tells us that AB bisects EB. So we're going to talk about that here in a sec. It also tells us that AB is congruent to DE. And it tells us that ECD and ACB are both right angles. So now what we want to focus on is this information right here. Right? If it tells us that AD is bisecting AB, well, that means that EC is going to be congruent to BC because that's the definition of bisecting, or of a bisector. So right now what that looks like in our picture, this in green so we can tell, right? It's saying that these two segments are congruent, right? We bisected that segment. And so now our question is, okay, why do we know that these triangles are congruent? Right, we're trying to prove that triangle ACB is congruent to triangle DCE. Well, those two triangles are congruent because of hypotenuse leg. Right, notice we have hypotenuse here, a leg, and they're both right angles. And if you need to pause that to write that information down, please do. And our second one here, again, similar information. We start with our given, right? I'm just putting quotes here, but we would write that in. So our given information, it tells us that WBZ, so this angle right here, and BWX, so this angle right here, are right angles. And then it also tells us that WZ is congruent to VX. So what we have to focus on is, notice we have two separate triangles here. We have this one that's green, and then this one in blue. So now we have to look and see, okay, well, what do they have in common? What do they have in common? Well, if we look here, right, we use the idea that WV is congruent to WV by the reflexive property, right? Because that side is congruent to itself. It shares that side. Both triangles use that side. And now notice we were given the hypotenuses before. We are now given a leg that we just found by reflexive property, and we have that they're right angles. These two triangles are now congruent by hypotenuse. So those two triangles are congruent by hypotenuse